This has been a very interesting process for me because when I came in here on Friday night and met you, I thought, oh, here's a man who knows. Here's a man who represents that state that I aspire to. So I got very excited. And as you started talking, you started ringing all the bells in my mind. And I'm thinking, yeah, that's right. That checks out with what I believe. And it was going fantastically. I'm thinking, wow, this is going to be easy. This is going to be easy in the presence of this man and with the information he's giving me.
Yes. And I have the feeling that the other shoe dropped.
Well, absolutely. I'm thinking, well, no, this isn't, I mean, it's getting me very close, but,
Yes.
you know, it's not quite getting me there. So then someone asked the question about grace and, you know, can that transmission of energy from someone who knows, can that do it? And then you say, well, no such thing as grace. That's not going to do it for you, you know. So there's another one of my concepts.
Well, everything
crashed.
everything is grace already. Everything is happening spontaneously. That's grace. In my book.
So is grace going to help in this process?
There's nothing but grace, my friend. That's the whole point. There is nothing but grace. There is nothing but the total spontaneous happening of everything that happens. Mm-hmm. That's the grace. So, it is possible that you can get what I call the foretaste, the taste of it, right?
I've got a taste for it, all right.
Okay. So when you get a taste for it, your mind must be telling yourself that you are somehow separate from that. When
Absolutely.
you look for yourself in your experience, is it clear enough that what you really are couldn't be just a thought? That what you really are must be in itself more than just a thought or a pattern of thinking. Mm-hmm. Because there's always the scene of the thinking. Right? The thinking can be there or the thinking can disappear, and what you are is still present, whether you're thinking or not. Whether you have some feeling or not, what you are is still there. Sometimes you have lots of feeling, sometimes it seems you're almost devoid of feeling or emotion, but what you are is still there. So clearly, what you are isn't a thought, and what you are isn't a feeling. And when there's no longer looking in thought and feeling, there's just what's really actually present. That you are not actually someone who is aware or is conscious, that you yourself are the awareness itself. Which isn't a thing, it's not a somebody. All that just exists in thought and disappears as soon as thought stops presenting it. So I can't give you what you already are, can I? How could I give anybody what they are? Lots of things can be given, but the truth of you can't be given. You can have all sorts of energetic experiences, some that could be tremendously pleasant. None of them will be what you are.
I'm getting very much a sense that, because, you know, I have had that experience of being in the now and how incredibly empowering it is and how beautiful it is to be in that eternal present moment. But, you know, then the mind comes in and you want to tell someone about it. And as soon as you want to tell someone about it, it takes you out of that moment sort of thing.
Yes, because then the me is separating itself. Even in the way we language things, we start to separate ourselves. Not that we shouldn't use this language, but when we see, I was in this wonderful moment of now. But when that wonderful moment of opening happens, there's really not a me who's in the moment. There's just the moment, is there not? That's all. That's why it's so wonderful. Because there is just the moment, just now, to use your words. But then the mind
comes in,
creates I. I was in the moment. And as soon as I was in the moment, was means past, then it means how do I get back to this elusive moment, to this elusive presence. And this is just the movement of the mind, is it not? Mm-hmm. Just reconstructing a sense of self. Now you can't stop it from doing that, can you? That's spontaneous, isn't it? You don't sit there and go, well, this is wonderful, total freedom. I think I'll screw it up by creating a sense of me to own it. It just, the mind is like a conditioned mechanism. It's been taught to do this for decades and decades. And so, I am in the moment. And if you believe that thought, then you seem to become the thought. But if it's seen, it's not true. I am not in the moment. That I, that my mind's creating, is purely illusory. There's actually just now. The moment itself is conscious. The moment is awake.
The interesting thing is, though, isn't it? You can seem to get a concept of that with your mind and then be deluded into thinking that your mind can help you to get back there.
That's the tricky part.
Yeah.
You see, because teachings that often fall under this nauseating concept called non-duality, it's only nauseating because it's sort of becoming a spiritual cliche now. But there's a problem with the teachings of non-duality, which is the kind of, even the teachings that I do. The problem with them is that they are if you really look at them, they're intellectually coherent. In other words, they make sense. They don't believe on faith or belief in any way. In fact, faith and belief are the deluders of truth. So they're intellectually coherent, which can make the mind go, I get that. I can understand that, because they're intellectually coherent, right? They may be coming from a place that's beyond the mind, but when you put them into concepts, they make a certain amount of sense. It's not just all a bunch of faith you're supposed to believe in or trying to believe in something that obviously makes no sense to you. But that's the danger of them. Because they are intellectually coherent, then the mind can get stuck in the mind, right? It makes sense. But the intellectual part is just a way to orient consciousness. That's really all it's there for, is to reorient consciousness back to itself. And when it orients itself back to itself, then the intellectual content really is not very important at all. And that there has to be a willingness not to continue to put it into this packaging in the mind, right? Because that's what the mind does, doesn't it? It packages experience. So you're right, it's very tricky.
And I think what's been happening to me here is it's a bit like, to use the computer analysis, when you try to get a computer to do too many functions at once, it crashes.
Yes.
And it's kind of like my mind's been trying to think, well, yeah, I can because everything you said made perfect sense to my mind.
Yeah.
It's been beautiful, everything you've said. And I'm thinking, yeah, I can get this with my mind. And then, no, that idea goes. And then I can get it on an energy level because I've been feeling really excited energetically.
Yeah.
But then that idea was, crashed too.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, everything's crashing around me.
Oh, good. I'm doing my job then. Yes, that's the whole idea.
Well, yeah, that's what it feels like. It feels like if I can really crash,
yes,
that I'll get it.
Not even that. No, that needs
crash
to crash
overload
too.
again.
Yes.
Give me something, please.
No.
You're not going to, are you? Can't be done.
No. Yeah. No. That the whole idea is to crash the system, right?
Yeah.
Because again, the orientation does not need to be on the intellectual component. That's just, again, a way of pointing consciousness, pointing spirit, because think of it, the reality of it's going to take place from your neck down, not from your neck up. In your experience, you see, that's the beautiful thing about it. All this is actually in your experience. It's there. In fact, it's so much in your experience that the experience of the Absolute is actually happening within you at this very moment. It's already there. It is happening. It's just the mind makes things very, very complex and complicated. And that's good. There's a time and a place for that, for the mind being able to do that. It's a very useful tool. But if all your energy keeps going there, it goes away from what's here. That which is not a thought.
It's really interesting. I think there's, because it ties in with what you've been saying, I think there's a lot of fear here.
Yeah.
Because, your mind wants you to keep control of this thing.
That's right.
And I think I have this tremendous resistance to crashing.
Yes. Of
To
course
losing control and fear of what that might mean. I'm reminded of what happened to Eckhart Tolle.
Yes.
When he had his experience, he was depressed, and then he fell into the void when he couldn't get that concept of there must be another self if it's not the self. And the voice said to him, what did it say? Fear not, do not resist. And I'm reminded, it occurs to me, I must be frightened if I'm not prepared to let the computer crash.
Yeah. Almost everybody's is afraid to let it crash. Yeah. And see, that's what I mean. That's the part nobody can give you. You can give all sorts of energetic experiences, intellectual experiences. Some of them may be so unimaginably pleasant that you think, this is it, I've reached the promised land. But the one thing that can't be given to you, who you are, and that resist not. That can't be given to you. That I can't tell somebody how to die. Because that's, from the me's point of view, that's what it thinks is happening. I just won't be. And everything it thinks that means. And I could tell you till I'm blue in the face that everything will be perfectly fine, but I've seen as a teacher that doesn't amount to a hill of beans. The only thing that's relevant is, are you ready to just let go? That's all. You see? That's the resist not. Just, even as, it doesn't mean you're not going to be afraid. It doesn't mean there won't be hesitations. It doesn't mean 101 arguments of why now is not a good time to resist not. It doesn't mean that doesn't arise. It means that in the face of that arising, you resist not. In the midst of it arising, in the midst of confusion, in the midst of doubt, in the midst of fear, that's resist not. There can be the resistance arising. Don't resist the resistance.